Welcome back to Behind the Vocals. This week we are joined by the one and only Guy from the Red Chord. It's an amazing episode where we talk about all things from filling in for the Black Dahlia murder to the 20th anniversary of their record, The Clients, and much, much more. So without further ado, let's get into the episode. All right, we are joined by the one and only Mr. Guy from the Red Chord. Sir, how are you doing today? How's it going?
Very good, thank you.
Glad to have you, man. It is an honor. I'm super stoked to chat with you about all things vocals and pick your brain and see kind of how everything works for you.
Sure.
It'll be fun. It'll be fun. But what I like to do to kind of start is just kind of give you the floor and let you introduce yourself for those that may not be as familiar with you and tell a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, Guy Kozowyk. I'm with I play with the Red Chord. Unlike the rest of the Red Chord guys, I am not a musician. I just hang out with them. I mean, a lot of times, like you get musicians, they've been in 10 different bands. Like I was in bands when I was a kid. And I mean, frankly, like I've been in the Red Chord since I was a kid. This has been my one and only band going back since like the late 90s. And then otherwise, it's like we're kind of celebrating some 20-year throwback stuff. But I never, if you talk to any other member of the three guys that are in the Red Chord now, every one of them is like very musical, very music driven. They have a million different projects. This is pretty much like the one thing that I do. I got a couple other for the fun of it sort of bands, but Red Chord's been kind of my primary thing for the last 20 something years.
Did you ever think as a kid starting off in the Red Chord that it would be where it is now, or that you have done the things you've done with it?
No, absolutely not. I've done way more with it than I ever intended on, or than I ever thought we really would have done. When I think back to like I just turned 45 this summer, and like if you had asked me when I was a kid like where I'd be when I was 45, like I kind of had low expectations that I'd still be alive that long. So it's just one of those things. Not for any other reason. I just hadn't really pictured, being an adult type of thing.
Definitely understand that. Well, congratulations on the 20 plus years, man. That's awesome. That's a super awesome feat, and it's really cool. I know you did some cool stuff recently too, correct? With didn't you do some stuff with Black Dahlia?
Oh yeah, so I got asked to fill in for the Black Dahlia murder. Now, Red Chord and Black Dahlia have a long history together. Red Chord took Black Dahlia out on like their first or second tour ever, and it was just one of those things where in the early days, like before we had a booking agent, like we spent a lot of time just kind of booking our own tours. That was the way a lot of stuff got done at the time. A lot of bands were just kind of like feeling around on message boards and trying to try their hand at just getting themselves out there. And it worked out that we made friends with Black Dahlia at a show out in Michigan, and then when we had a spot open on a tour with the Red Chord and Premonitions of War, it was either 2002 or 2003. Something happened and they had tour dates lined up, and it fell through. So I ended up just being like, hey, do you guys want to do this instead? So they kind of ran around the East Coast with us for a few weeks. And then all these years later, I got a phone call saying that Brian wasn't going to be able to do a couple shows. And he'd asked me like, hey, you're where my brain went if you could fill in for this. So one of the more flattering phone calls I've gotten, just because I mean, that band blew up, and I've got nothing but love for all of those guys, past and present. And the fact that they thought of me was pretty amazing, especially like the two shows that I got to fill in were like pretty substantial. The Sonic Temple and Welcome to Rockville, which were both of those Danny Wimmer presents like massive, massive festivals.
Yeah, those are huge. Was there any nerves trying to just fill in and do songs that weren't yours from Red Chord, stuff like that, just to step in?
Oh yeah, lots of nerves. I mean, the fact that, the fact that, I mean, Trevor's obviously not with us anymore, and one of the coolest compliments I ever got was back when Black Dahlia put out Miasma. I remember we had already traveled with them and done some stuff here and there, and I remember Trevor approaching me and telling me that some of the clients and the fused together stuff had inspired him a little bit. He's like, your lyrics have kind of inspired me a little bit to like be able to step outside of the death metal box and write some different stuff on Miasma. So that is just the fact that that dude said that to me, and like I have so much respect for him as a vocalist, and to get in my friend's head and to go and revisit a lot of the songs they were playing. And I guess as much as I know Black Dahlia songs, like a little bit, like superficially, I never memorized all the words. So it was extremely intimidating to try to get through. Just like it was a bear of a project trying to cram all those lyrics into my head. And at some point, I kind of shifted from memorizing the lyrics to memorizing the actual like stories of their songs, because like it's like a lot of their tracks were more like reading like a passage out of the Bible type of thing.
Yeah.
Some dark sort of thing, but it was like nothing really repeats except for a line or two here or there. And I mean, frankly, like Brian's lyrics, Eschbach, who's been in the band now since way back when, his lyrics weren't any easier. His patterns are real fast, and it was definitely not necessarily my natural style. But I mean, it was just an honor to be even in that conversation, to be considered to hop in. And I'm actually going to go see them next weekend at the New England Metal Hardcore Festival, and it'd be nice to see the band as they're intended, and just be a spectator and a fan again, because I mean, just the combination of trying to memorize all those songs on kind of like a short notice, and to get up on the stage, like, practice once or twice and then jump up on a stage in front of a lot of people. It was awesome, and it was also just nerve wracking.
Oh, I'm sure. It's not like you were playing a small show either. Like you said, these massive festivals. So
No, the one thing that screwed me up probably more than anything is those guys use in-ear monitors, which I'd never used before. And when they told me like, yeah, like, hey, we have an in-ear mix, like it was just a very different thing that
yeah.
I'd ever done before. And I mean, I could see why people would like it. I didn't. It was just a very, and I'm sure I could probably adjust to it, but it was just such a different sensation. So
Yeah.
it was a combination of like, I'm up there with a band that isn't mine, singing songs that I didn't write, that I was still very, like, I will say I took it very seriously, and I memorized the hell out of it. People were like, oh yeah, you flubbed the words. Like, no, like I memorized every last word of every song that I sang. There was like something that like I inverted one of the lines, and I was like cursing myself out in my head, just being like, no, damn it. But for the most part, I got it. And yeah, that was a brain twister for sure.
Oh, I'm sure. The in ears are. Whenever I was playing and stuff more, it obviously in ears are like pretty much no bands really used in ears. You'd have to be like a really really big like arena band or something to have in ears back then. It was just you were at the mercy of the house PA pretty much at all times, which
Yeah.
is good or awful. You can't hear anything. So the in ears
Yeah.
are definitely a new thing, and whenever I first started using them, it's taken some getting used to. It's
Well, the way I was kind of describing it when I was trying to tell people like what I was kind of dealing with is I mean, I came from this basement VFW type of scene where you're relying heavily, not so much on monitors even, you're relying heavily off of like the actual like crowd PA, like the PA is what you're hearing.
yeah,
And so everything from like whatever you're barking out to what you're hearing back and stuff, the things that people are saying to you in the crowd, all of that stuff, like you're hyper kind of like tuned in on it. When you have this thing in your ear, it like almost like you're trying to have a conversation with somebody from a different room, or like you're trying to like talk to somebody while you have headphones in and you're hearing something going on versus like what's in front of you. I'm sure that on any sort of a time frame, I could probably make the adjustment. It was just more like have a practice, do this, and try to get the stuff down, and also morph to a different style. I could definitely see where, like, especially on the noisy clubs or the stuff where the stage sound isn't great, that would be really beneficial.
Yeah.
I just like really struggled with it. Where especially like when I went to say something like in between songs, like like almost like my voice scared me, like in my like, oh yeah, that's what I sound like. It was just so like clean and weird, and it would take some kind of getting used to. But I mean, bottom line is like it was just such a cool experience to even be considered for that. And I love those dudes, and I get nothing but support, and I'm very much a fan. So the fact that they even thought to include me in that, I mean, it's obviously a very, very temporary emergency thing to deal with, but it was awesome to even have gotten that phone call.
Oh yeah, it's super sick that you did it. That's awesome, and you're a machine for doing it on that short, like with the notice and the songs. How long was the set? It probably was 45 minutes, hour.
It was less than that. It was
Oh,
because there were festivals. They were only like 35 minutes or something
35
like
minutes set.
that.
But still, like you said, the books, and that's kind of how Trevor and everybody they've always wrote. It's not like the
Yeah.
repeating choruses or anything like that. Like more like you said,
No, I mean,
storytelling.
and every vocalist is going to have their own way of like their own patterns, their own
Right.
attack, their own phrasing. He almost has this like very uh, like old school English literature sort of vibe. It's just very different than the way that I would naturally write. But it was really cool to revisit the stuff that he had written, and again like that stuff when he told me about that miasma thing years ago, and just the fact that I would like have that I would have any effect on him, like at least at that stage, was always super inspiring. And like it was just nice to like kind of revisit uh that all these years later. And I mean, there's some of those tracks, especially like on that like the I had a whole new appreciation going back and revisiting. Like I love Nocturnal, I love Miasma, and like, but some of the stuff beyond that, like some of the later stuff was like really impressive. And I will say like Brian's like the newer tracks that like Brian wrote are also extremely like in line with what Trevor did, and it was nice to kind of really wrap my head around that. He's certainly kept the spirit of what they've always done alive.
That's sick. Brian's voice surprised me too when I heard him. I wasn't expecting him to do what he did whenever he kind of took the mantle of it. And I was just like, okay, I see Brian. It sounds good. He's doing really good. I've been very impressed.
Yeah, he's got a lot of words. I will say that was one thing that caught me off guard, was just like the couple of the newer tracks like were like Evening Ephemeral is like one of their opening tracks, and like that was the one that probably tripped me up more than anything. It was just this, his phrasing is very fast, and there's a lot of words, and it's very much in line with the old Black Dahlia spirit. And then like they had the single there, the Mammoth's Hand is a little bit different, but again, like really hammers the Black Dahlia vibe. I think that the lines were a little bit, they were slower on that one, a little bit bigger, but it still kept in line with telling a whole story of this tribe going through and just fucking everybody up. It was just very, very cool. And even just touching on some of Trevor's stuff, that you hear a record and like you play with these bands and like you tour with bands and whatever, and maybe you don't spend as much time like reading the lyrics as you do hearing the songs. It was really nice to revisit on like a very intimate level and memorize every single word and really think about the stuff that he was talking about and saying. It was cool.
Nice. Were those the biggest shows you've ever played?
No, no, I mean, like the way that they have that festival set up, like you're playing to a lot of different stages and stuff. So, any of our bands that have gone overseas and played some of these like Euro festivals are always big. Red Chord had we had done Ozfest and Mayhem and
Oh,
Sounds of the
okay.
Underground, which are like very similar in terms of the size, but it's still like since like Red Chord's been back the last couple of years, like we haven't played anything like that in a long, long time. So
Are you a fan of the big
Definitely,
festivals? Do you like them like that? I know some.
there's nothing bad about playing to, five, ten
Right.
thousand people at a whack. They're like, I mean, there's times like where, you know, I tend to like the small shows, but like if you were out on tour, especially like years ago at the tail end of our band, when like touring was kind of winding down, there's something very depressing when you play to not a lot of people in a little tiny room and like the vibe is just off and you didn't expect it. Whereas like I don't care how old you are, you could be like ZZ Top's age or something like that. You walk out on a festival and there's like thousands of people there. There's nothing negative
Right.
about it. I mean, um, our the world that we came from was very much that that crowded club, that VFW, you know, and some of the best shows I've ever played were probably in front of nobody. It's just that when you start when you start getting middle age and you go out and you do stuff like that, it's sort of like, oh well, that's not really how I want to spend my
Yeah.
my days off. Which thankfully, since we've been back, like there's been very like that hasn't really happened.
Yeah. The connection's a little better. You have more of like an intimate connection with the crowd on the smaller venues than the festivals. But the festivals are great for publicity, getting new fans, exposure, everything. Like you said, they're awesome to do.
Yeah, and you never know. Either way, you never know. I mean, like the reality is that um, people will remember you for the one time that you were lazy, that you were a dink to them, that you didn't want to take the time to like talk to them or sign something or interact with them. Like you could be on the road 200 days of the year and you could have that one experience where you were just too tired or too like, you were just having the worst day of your life. Your girlfriend broke up with you. You didn't have any money. Your van broke down. People are going to remember that negative interaction versus the like, excuse me, the slew of positive stuff that you do day to day. So I mean, I learned kind of early on, like, and I've had some experiences like that in the past where somebody just like rubbed me the wrong way. That I'm like, I don't really want to be that guy, and I've always tried to. Like I've had people even like since we've done this like reuniting since like 2022 on, where somebody has like told me like I saw you guys in this venue and there was 10 people there, like especially when we played the Furnace Fest back in 2022. It was really nice to hear some people that had come out to our shows on the first tour that we ever did in 2001, and then they would have some like amazing memory of something that we did, and it was like I know that that person's being genuine because there was 15 people at that show, and all these years later they have something nice and positive to say because we had a good interaction, or we slept at their on their floor, or or whatever it was. We gave them a t-shirt when they were a couple of bucks short. Like, so you really never know um, who's going to be in the crowd, whether it's you're playing to thousands of people and you might think like, oh, the vibe's off, this is terrible, but you don't know because someone out there is going to be like, wow, that's awesome, that spoke to me. Or someone in that room in front of nobody might just be like, wow, this is a game changer.
Yeah.
And I've been to so many shows like that, especially coming from that like grindcore, hardcore, metalcore world, where like I've seen some bands that really just like blew my mind in front of like nobody, that I'm a lifelong fan from like stuff like that.
Nice. You mentioned the New England Metal Hardcore Festival coming up. This is a little bit of a
Yes, sir.
legendary show. It's been, man, I don't even know how many years it's been going at this point, but it's had some insane lineups, and every year I guess it does. This year is Bury Your Dead's last show, correct?
Yeah, yeah. Bury Your Dead are some long time. We've known those dudes for a real long time. We did some touring with them in '04, '05. Yeah, just Mark, the drummer from Bury Your Dead, he was in between the Bury to me at one point when we were in some of our early tours with them, and yeah, just they're finally hanging it up. So yeah, I'll get to see them for one last time.
And you guys were a big part of that scene up there, correct, in Massachusetts? Because there for a while, early 2000s, 2010, and on. It was booming. There's tons of bands that have come out of there.
Yeah, so it's funny because if you ever follow, I'll plug him all the time. There's a website called returntothepit.com. He runs an Instagram page, and Aaron that does the photography for that, he has taken more show pics of us than anybody ever. And he constantly does this like, hey, on this date 18 years ago, on this date 25 years ago. And some of the earliest Red Chord shows that we had ever played, like we did this like CD release show at a little hall in Taunton, Mass, and Bury Your Dead, prior to Matt Brusso like joining the band, like they played with like the earlier singer on that. And then there was this infamous like VFW show in Lawrence, Massachusetts, where like the ceiling got destroyed during it was like the show was like Nora and Red Chord and Bury Your Dead and Deadwater Drowning. And I remember all the drop ceiling in this VFW basement got destroyed, and that was Red Chord and Bury Your Dead. And yeah, and like when we finally like got like touring together, I remember like we were just like definitely just complete bros at that point. It's just I wish I talked to those dudes more than I do now, but definitely good people.
That's awesome. That's so cool. Okay, so you kind of already mentioned this, but do you play any other instruments other than vocals?
No.
Okay, I'm right there with you.
I am like the single least musical person. I should have naturally picked up something over the years. Like when I was a kid, my mom was trying to get me to play saxophone. I remember doing it for like a couple weeks, and I just am very not musical and not motivated by that stuff at all. I should have naturally, for the amount of instruments and stuff that are around, like I got a drum set sitting over here in my basement. I could just be wailing on this thing right now and doing blast beats, and nope. I'm just, I wouldn't know the first thing to do with it. So,
yeah, I was always banned from our drum set just because they're like, nope, just stay away from it. You know how peculiar drummers can be about like positioning and stuff, and I'm over there just not knowing what I'm doing at all. But it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to get a kick pedal for it, and like every once in a while, like I think about that. Like I'm like, yeah, I should probably just get a kick pedal and like learn how to like do blast beats or something and just wow everybody. But I don't think it would really go that way.
So how did you get into vocals then? What made you become a vocalist?
I mean, in the early 90s, I was hanging around musicians, and they were like, hey, do you want to sing? And I remember the first band I ever had, I didn't even have a PA or a microphone. They were just like, yeah, just sing, yell.
Nice.
I mean, I was going back to like, freshman year of high school. So, and then it's like, yeah, we should probably get you a microphone. So I was like singing through like a combo amp or something like that at one point. It just really boiled down to, I had friends in bands that were trying to do stuff, and it was like it went from me hanging around and whatever to, all right, well, let me try to do something.
Nice. So how did you actually learn? Like how did you? Because when you started, there was no YouTube to teach you, none of these institutes or vocal academies or anything like that. It was. I love asking people that learned back then because it's a lot of trial and error. It was just kind of like, I'm gonna try this. Okay, that kind of works, so I'm just gonna keep trying to do that. Just kind of figuring it out on your own.
Yeah. So I was, so my friends were playing, like some guys were doing grunge, and then some guys were starting to do metal. Like my buddy Jesse was like really big into like Megadeth and Slayer, and I try to like learn some of the songs and things like that that they'd be covering at that stage. And I remember like because I was learning to yell basically at one point without a microphone, it was all about just trying to do volume and just doing something like with vocal natural distortion. And I really had no idea like how my voice was supposed to work. and like what came out of my mouth was generally more on the lines of like a screamy, almost like Zach De La Rocha type of sound. And I think that was partially just because I was just yelling at the top of my lungs, and I was 14, 15 years old. Um, that sort of changed as like Pantera was a big influence, and Anthrax, and then suddenly like I was listening to like Napalm Death and some of that sort of stuff. And like the one thing that totally changed things was when I heard Suffocation for the first time, because it was just like, okay, I understood how. I've been on the Anthrax was the first CD I ever bought, The Sound of White Noise. So it was like John Bush, Anthrax, and I've been on this John Bush kick lately because I met him when we played that show in the Sonic Temple show in Ohio, and like I've just been like, yes, I met like one of my childhood heroes. So I could understand how a guy could belt out because it really wasn't far off of doing like the Chris Cornells or or the Scott Whalens or something like that. I could understand where like he sings, he belts, he sings, and like Phil Anselmo was kind of like he sang and he sang lower and he could growl and he could, but it sounded like a voice. When I heard Frank Mullen and Suffocation for the first time, I was like, wait a second, that you're telling me that is a person. That's like, I could open my mouth and that sound could come out. And that sort of changed things for me. And then on the other side, I was going to a lot of like hardcore shows, and I was just starting to like get into just whether it was tough guy hardcore or the early like metal, like screamy hardcore. And I loved the idea of like that energy of like we had Converge, we had Cave In, and the other singer that really changed a lot of things for me was Tim Singer from Dead Guy. His lyrics changed things for me, like his sound of his voice, because Frank Mullen distinctly, like he sounded like a non-human. He was like this weird monster alien character. And then Tim Singer was, how do you sound like a person and just sound like you're the angriest person in the world? Like you would be like one of those like angry characters in like Ren and Stimpy or something like that, just yelling at the top of your lungs, like in some like I'm getting accosted by like a dad voice. And like those two singers in particular kind of shaped things for me in terms of like their attack, because I didn't want to sound like like a monster all the time, because I wanted that interaction that death metal at that stage didn't really get. Like you could sound like a monster, but you weren't getting the sing-alongs and the interaction and the people knowing every word, because realistically, like most people don't know every single Cannibal Corpse lyric. No, most people don't know all the Suffocation lyrics, because it's more about, it was just impressive that it was like okay. And it was, yeah, you're right, in terms of, I think that there's something to these YouTubers like demystifying, oh yeah, well, you're gonna fry scream, and like, no, I've never sat there and tried to like learn the correct way to do it, and maybe I've taken some years off my life and my vocal cords and stuff, but there was a mystery to it. It wasn't about fry scream. It wasn't about like, oh, if you do this weird, like, it was just like, how did this guy do it? And I'm going to sit there and I'm going to try to like figure it out. And it's not a science project. It was just, how do you do it?
Yeah.
And everybody had their own sort of way of attempting it. And and then the idea of like recording and sounding like that was like a whole different ball game, because like you didn't know what the studio process looked like. You're going to walk into a studio and they're going to say, all right, you can't touch the mic, and we're going to put this pop screen up, and you're going to be singing from here, and you're going to be like, well, wait a minute, like I sing into a little SM58, and I'm just going to be like, like, I mean, you're almost like swallowing the microphone. Now you're going to like go into a recording setting and be told like, no, you can't touch it because you get a pop screen. Now everyone's a recording engineer, and everyone has these like elaborate home studios with their laptop and the SM7Bs and all that. And you're armed with like, hours and hours and hours of tutorials on how to do this and that and how to, maximize like your false chords and stuff. And it's like, well, it sort of took the fun out of it a little bit, but on the other side of it, you have way more of these people running around, sounding like legitimate monsters.
Yeah.
So I guess that's kind of cool.
It kind of going what you said with the studio back, because whenever I was doing more stuff, we would have to go to the studio. You'd have to rent studio time, do all that. And first time going in there, it was definitely a shock for me. Kind of like you said, I was used to just using my Shure mic, just going to town, and then get in there and like, no, 6 inches, blah blah blah, all this. You have to do this, do that, and I'm just like, what is happening? Like, I don't know what to do with my hands right now. I'm confused about everything. Like,
Yeah.
it was completely different. Now it is way more accessible, way easier to make music, to make albums, everything. Like you said, everybody has home studio setups, DAWs everywhere. I mean, back then you had a few programs you could do scratch tracks on and do pre-production, and that was about it. And then you had to go to a legit studio to get a good product.
Now, the flip side of that coin is, so the first record that we went in and professionally recorded. Now, I'd been into some of these other studios with like, my little high school bands and stuff, and that was never, or you go into somebody's like parents' house and like did a demo, and like, you'd be like, well, you gotta wait until my dad leaves because you can't sing low because he doesn't like devil music. And it's like, so like we'd have to like rush like low vocals and stuff, like when stuff, whatever. So when we got into the first Red Chord record, we did Fuse together. We did the entire tracking for everything in 4 days, and it was like I did all the vocal tracks. We doubled all the takes. We recorded it reel to reel, like so on actual analog tape. Excuse me, and like that was like insane because I think I recorded vocals for like 4 hours straight, and I like burnt my voice out so bad to the point where like by the end of that session, I had a hard time. Like there were certain things that we were supposed to do like gang sing-alongs, and I couldn't explain it because my voice was so fried. Now when we did clients with Zeus at Planet Z, I use the SM7B that you're using right now, and that has been my go-to microphone for everything that I've recorded, guest vocals or album vocals or everything beyond that. I own 2 of them now myself in terms of like my little home tracking and stuff, and it's been that mic, and they've never made a better mic for the vocal tracking where you can actually do it without a pop screen. You can just use whatever foam that's on it. And that's been like my go-to now, just because I don't see any reason why like, you sing a certain way, like you have a microphone and you're going to handheld hold it and you're going to perform the way that vocalists in the metal world do. You want it to be as close to that as possible, just in terms of the way that you record.
Absolutely. You were kind of talking about back in the old days being almost mystified by how people would do stuff. There was a lot to that back then. Just hearing like the Phil Bozeman for the first time on like Somatic Defilement, just like, how is he doing that? How is he holding that guttural, like that low end scream that long? Like just different things you would hear, different parts, is like mind blowing. Like, how are they making those noises? Like
well, and now the thing is, like, despite the fact that people have demystified some of this stuff, Phil is a phenom. As far as that world of vocalists, like I think he is the dude, like hands down, like he is still the guy out there. I had the privilege. I got to. I knew those guys like when they first signed with Metal Blade, and I sang some guest vocals on one of the tracks in This Is Exile, and I mean Phil is just a phenomenal vocalist and really like an exception. Where to this day, like I don't think anybody can like out heavy that dude.
yeah.
At some point in time, as I've gotten older, I've kind of realized that my strength is I'm not gonna out heavy some of these younger dudes where they're gonna go lower than me, they're gonna go higher than me. So I'm not even in that competition anymore. Like I try to like be me, and I try to make my phrasing, and I want my voice to hold through like in such a way that when somebody hears me on a track, that they go, oh, okay, I recognize that. That's Guy's voice right there. And it's about keeping your identity and your personality to your lines more so than it's just being like as brutal or heavy as it is. And I mean, frankly, it's part of that's just because I mean, there's a point where like you're gonna just sound like this weird alien creature, and it's like you're kind of like it's cool to be like, oh yeah, I totally dehumanize this, but for me, it's like, yeah, if you're hearing the Red Chord vocalist doing it, like I'd rather that you be like, oh, I recognize that there is a charm to being like you could pick a vocalist out, and that you don't just
100%.
sound like everyone else. I will say that Phil is one of those dudes that I hear his lows, and it's Phil, and nobody is like as good as he is.
Absolutely. You kind of touched on a couple good points. The being unique and finding like kind of your voice and what you sound like and honing in your craft. I mean, vocal Olympics are awesome, and if you can do it, fantastic, but having your distinct voice, kind of like you said, where people will be like, that's Guy. You hear your voice, you can pick you out. You have your own way of doing things and kind of like playing to your strengths, not trying to do things, necessarily out of your range, or trying to be the next Phil or be the next Trevor or whoever. You do your own thing, and I feel like that's something vocalists could really learn and like take to heart. It's important to find your voice and be you and play to your strengths.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, and it's I'm kind of curious to see what happens, 20 years from now, because
It's getting
if you
wild.
have these, yeah, I mean, if you have like, whatever, and you got somebody like Lorna Shore is obviously like one of the biggest bands out there right now, and I know they have that one track that got them a lot of attention with Will Ramos just doing that like
The Hellfire.
bizarro. Yeah, yeah. I mean, like that end part is. I remember seeing them, Carnifex and Suicide Silence had taken them out a couple years back when they were kind of like opening up, and I mean, I'll hand it to him. The guy's a monster.
Yeah.
He sounds great live, and they kind of have like a similar sort of vibe to like what Johnny and the Job for a Cowboy guys had years ago, where it was like they're bringing out young people and exposing young people to a whole scene that. I mean, hey, a rising tide is going to raise all ships.
Yep.
Those dudes are as big as they are, and they kind of sound like Dark Funeral or something like that. That's wild. And it's just kind of his voice is definitely pretty crazy. I'm curious to see what happens now, like that somebody that's into him and doing that's going to be 13 years old, like what that person or the next generation of vocalists going to wind up sounding like, because it's come a long way.
Yeah. Yeah, it's getting really wild really quick, and then we're in the age of the going for the viral clips, like you said, like the To the Hellfire, because that skyrocketed the band. I mean, they had been around probably a decade or so before that happened, and then Will joined, and they go viral, and it's now they're one of the bigger bands in metal right now. I mean, they're
Sure.
yeah, it's been crazy. Going back to Phil, I just love how Phil, like you said, is one of the top, deathcore or vocalists. Just what he can do. He did all those albums, then they kind of went more progressive, and he changed. He's like, hey, I can sing, we can do this, just showing the range. And then deathcore's kind of had like a revival lately, and Whitechapel's like, all right, we'll come back heavy. And Phil's like, oh, hey, did you forget about me? Here you go. Just in case you forgot, I can still do this.
Well, yeah, and I mean Whitechapel, hey, I think that there's a point in time where people like they went off and they did something different. They were at the forefront, or they weren't the first band to do that sort of deathcore style,
Right.
but they were kind of masters of that craft at that point. They went out, they did some different things, and like at this point, like that newest record that they did, I think is like one of the best that's come out in that genre period. So like they're kind of like the king of the monsters when it comes to that deathcore stuff. That entire new record is really solid, and really kudos to them for they never really stopped, and it's cool that they came back with such a fire.
Oh yeah, that the record from start to finish is fantastic. I was
Yeah.
really happy with it. All right. Well, when you were doing vocals, what were some early mistakes you made when you were learning? You know, with the little combo amp and everything. Did you make any early mistakes or anything that you kind of learned from?
I mean, everything's a big mistake. I just, I mean, I definitely don't sing correctly. I beat my voice up really bad. People say sing from your diaphragm and, use false chords. I just kind of go out there. I'm not a great example of what you should do. There's a lot of what I do that comes from the throat, and over time, it's like I just kind of like go with what I got and belt out as hard as I can, which is not great vocally, like in terms of no, I definitely put a lot of abuse on on my vocal cords, but I also think there's a certain charm to it. You're screaming, you're literally screaming your head off versus like trying to like make it a science project. I'm sure that there's some way that there's people that are much more serious about this stuff than I am, that they've kind of mastered that stuff, and maybe there's techniques that I should go and consider. I haven't. I'm probably not. I'm 45 years old, and
You're doing something right though, because you've done it for a long time and you've been able to keep it going and not hurt yourself. So I mean, you're definitely doing something right.
yeah. I mean, we'll go with that.
I love
But
the ones that've
yeah,
been doing it for a while, like Andy from Plea. Whenever I gave him the questions, he was like, "I'm gonna be honest, I don't do majority of this stuff. I literally just go yell every night. That's what I would do is just go yell." And I was like, "Hey, it works. You played 200 shows or whatever more a year. You're doing something right." He's like, "I guess I don't know. I just yelled." It's like, okay,
yeah. I mean, so like, and it was the thing that was real scary was that was like a norm for the entirety of my teens and 20s and early 30s. Like I was just out there doing it all the time. I wasn't really worried about being in and out of like show shape because it was never that long without being off the road. Um, and then from 2015 to 2022, I did nothing, like next to nothing. Like I remember I tried to jam with some bands and whatever. And coming back before the 2022 Decibel show, like where it had literally been 7 years since Red Chord played, that was like nerve wracking. Where the first practices, I was like, whoa, my voice feels different. It sounds a little bit different. Um, I just need to consistently kind of stay warmed up and consistently do stuff because it's not like something where you could just be like, oh, okay, I'll just stretch a little bit. If I blow my voice out, I don't have a voice. I'm not playing. So there's always like I gotta kind of keep it in shape, and it's temperamental. Like if I get a cold, it's gonna sound different. If I get really sick, it's gonna sound different. If I go too hard one night and it's not necessarily going to be there the next day. So there is like a point where you just kind of hit your sweet spot where you hopefully get enough rehearsals in consistently. And if I practice once or twice a month, like I'm usually okay. If I just took 6 months off right now, that's where I'm sort of like, oh, okay. Like, so it's definitely a perishable skill, and it's definitely something that getting ready for that 2022 stuff. That was like where it was like nerve wracking, where I was like, oh, okay, yeah, this is what if I just can't do this anymore? So thankfully it came back.
don't you just love how finicky it can be though? You wake up in a different state, different altitude, different climate, messes with your voice. You could just wake up with a sore throat in general. Like you said, you may have went too hard the night before, sick. It's not like you can restring stuff. Like you wake up and you're just kind of at the mercy of whatever's going on and hope your voice is okay.
Oh yeah. I mean,
It's lovely.
and like one of the more embarrassing things was like the end of last year. We did 3 shows with Pig Destroyer back in last October. What screws me up more than anything is if I'm gonna if I'm gonna yell over the crowd, like when I'm like I do merch a lot of times, and that is probably like one of the worst situations. If I'm gonna sit there and I'm just gonna like talk to people and I'm gonna be like shouting over the crowd, and then especially like right after the set, if I'm
Yeah.
going to just be back to shouting over the crowd, I think that does more damage than the actual show itself. So when we did the first two dates, we were just like getting in the van and then driving like 2 hours, and it was like a lot of like just everyone yelling and stuff like that after the show and going out to eat and whatever. And by the third show, my voice was just fried. And I think it was just a combination of just like not sleeping and just a lot of that like after show sort of abuse. So if anything, I think it's just more, um, and it seems like a very like sort of prima donna sort of thing where it's like, okay, you almost gotta like peace out and avoid the crowds and settle down, which is not necessarily the luxury that you have in some of those loud settings.
Absolutely.
But that's a mistake that I make all the time, which I'll probably still make it this year.
Was there ever, whenever you were kind of really in the thick of it and touring and doing everything, was there ever an aha moment of like how to kind of stay in show shape, if you will, and keep your voice ready, or how to like, I guess, sustain it for those long tours and those trips and everything?
No, there was no aha. Like it was always a learning curve. Every tour was always something. Like you could say whatever you want that you're going to plan to do this or that, and then you're going to go on tour for 10 weeks straight, and it's just going to kind of go out the window. Oh yeah, well, I'm going to make sure that I take a shower after every set, and I'm going to be quiet. And, well, then you're working the merch table, you don't have somebody there, and then you're yelling over the crowd, and like, there you go. Or there's no shower at the venue, or this and that, or you get a 12-hour ride the next day, so you're in sweaty, disgusting clothes, and it's 20 degrees out, and now you get pneumonia. Like, just like you're just completely at the at the hands of whatever the circumstance kind of is. So, you can be careful with what you take into your body in terms of like making sure that you're not that you're eating right, you're not drinking and things like that. But I mean the weather, the germs, you're really just keep your fingers crossed and hope for the best.
Did you have any kind of routine at all for vocals to warm up, or anything you did for vocal care?
Not really vocal care. I mean, especially if I knew I was like starting to get sick, like, or I knew I was always taking allergy meds. I didn't develop allergies until like I was in my 20s and on tour, and all of a sudden I was like living on antihistamines. Um, so as soon as like the seasons change, as soon as stuff would hit the air, like I'd just be like in a big fight where like you're trying to like suck down some local honey or tea or whatever, and I really didn't get a ton out of it. Um, Before a set, I do like some like warm ups, if you would, like a lot of like humming,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't go from like zero to yelling my head off. Usually, I try to take an hour or two and like hum a little bit harder, and then eventually I'm like kind of doing yells, and it kind of helps me get through the range of stuff that I'm going to be doing. Uh, Now the flip side of that is if I know that I'm no matter what I do, I'm real sick and probably going to blow it. Stay as quiet as possible, get up on stage, and if I'm going to blow it, at least it'll be on stage, and I'll get through the show and figure out what to do the next night if there is a next night.
What about whenever you're in the studio? Do you do anything to prep for the studio as far as like routine or anything?
No, in the studio, thankfully, you have a little bit of wiggle room usually in terms of if you're in somewhere and you're having a bad vocal day, you can usually come back and just you're probably not gonna. At this point, I've sort of accepted that unless I unless I absolutely had to, I'm probably going to just go in and do things like line for line. Come in, do a couple songs in a day, and then back away, and then come back like at another time. Um, Unless I absolutely had to, I wouldn't be trying to like do 10 songs in a day or two, you know, ever again. Um, I think that there's something to sounding as fresh as possible. I like the idea of like just going in, having a raw sounding recording that's very much like a, yeah, all right, dude, cool. This is what we sound like live. It's just that for a band like ours, I think it's a little bit more clean in terms of it's not going to be so raw and gritty that you just want to like punk rock it. I think like for Red Chord it'll be more like busting through sections of songs or a song in a day versus coming in and trying to do like 12 of those.
Oh yeah, that's brutal. The 12 songs. Okay, we're gonna shift gears a little bit. Where do you pull from for lyrics when you're writing lyrics? Do you do more personal? Do you do conceptual? Do you kind of do like a mixed bag of both, or what's your go-to?
So Red Chord's always had some rules that I kind of adhered to early on, where a lot of things are more. I mean, everything is more conceptual with Red Chord than in other stuff. Um, I never wanted like some of the first bands that I ever had. You would write about the typical hardcore stuff, your metalcore stuff. You'd write about a relationship that you had, or you'd have a breakup and you talk about it. And that was always kind of like the metalcore thing to do. And then like you'd have like some of these like death metal bands like doing some gory thing. And I just said in my head, I don't want to ever do anything gory that's going to be like the equivalent of like a slasher film. I don't want to ever do anything personal where you're going to be um, eventually singing about something that you got over and that you no longer feel as passionate about. So with Red Chord, there was kind of like a set of rules where uh, I'd rather talk about like a story as though I'd write a story. It might be based on something that like I heard or saw or knew about, or I'd rather talk about like this kind of like made up scenario that you could view as almost like a folklore type of thing of you're passing down a story through generations, and it's not going to be super pigeonholed to that time. I'd write from the perspective of uh, especially like the early records, like writing from the perspective of an animal as opposed to a person. And like Dreaming in Dog Ears was like the like something that caught on, and it was kind of I always thought it was like kind of a clever name and clever concept that you were writing from the perspective of this dog that was having a dream about being put to sleep. And you couldn't say like, well, wait a second, we've heard this one a million times. Like I hadn't heard
Yeah.
about anybody doing that. So, not to say that it puts a lot like I wanted whatever I was writing about with Red Chord to be as unique and different as the musicians that were creating the musical content for it.
That's awesome. That's really cool. I like that take on it. I like your approach. Do you have a lyricist that you look up to or that you admire? You kind of already mentioned a few earlier.
Well, yeah, I mean, so a lot of them aren't necessarily like that in terms of like you get a guy like Tim Singer who just knocks it out of the park. Like his stuff, like he says lines and you believe him. They're scary and they're like he's horrifying because he sounds like he's so mean, and he's always kept that going back to like the fixation on a coworker, like some of the lines on that. I mean, like that was written when I was like 15 years old. No, like 1995, like that. It's 30 years ago, and it's just like the way that he comes off is so abrasive. Now, flipping the coin in like a totally different way, there were dudes that kind of inspired me, not necessarily because of exactly what they wrote about, but just because they were writing about something that was just so different. So you take somebody like Zach De La Rocha, who like Rage Against the Machine was a band that was like very influential for me, and it was like less about buying into all of what he was saying and more about the fact that here's this guy in the early 90s that's picking a cause, a topic, and elaborating on it and shedding light onto something that people weren't paying attention to, or and that he just thought needed more attention. And the fact that he could like take any of the incidents and without getting into like any of like the politics of it, I just always thought that that was like really amazing that he could like put a spotlight on something and say, I'm going to write about this. Another guy would be Carl from Earth Crisis. Like the fact that you could say, all right, well, Carl, what are you going to write about in this band? Well, I'm going to write about my militant stance on my dietary restrictions and militant veganism and like yeah, this song will be about this crazy firestorm that comes down from the heavens and purifies the earth of all the people that have disrespected their bodies by drinking alcohol and by consuming dairy and meat. Or like the entire Destroy the Machines record just being about like whatever animal abuse and things like that that kind of come with the meat and the dairy industries and stuff like that. And as it like just to turn around and say, I'm going to write about something that let me talk about what I'm not going to put in my body today. Like versus like, oh, wait, hold on. So you're not going to write about like, butchering a person and doing some Cannibal Corpse lyrics. You're not going to write about staying true to hardcore and write it like have it sound like, a 25 to Life song. No, I think I'm just going to do this now. Like the fact that that some of those bands like went out and did it, regardless of how you feel. Like, I mean, you don't have to be straight edge or vegan or vegetarian or pescatarian or gluten free. I don't know if there'd be like some gluten free band running around right now that's going to be so committed to celiac and whatever that they're going to like write albums and albums about it. But the fact that somebody would write about that at a point in time when nobody was talking about it, and the fact that they like inspired all these other bands to go out and be like, yeah, I'm going to write about not drinking and abstaining from sex. And like you have like one side of it that's like going to be like, running around, like, dealing with the rap music culture of like making money and getting girls. And the other side, like, bands like 108 and Shelter, like talking about like, Hare Krishna and whatever else that they're talking about. Anything that was talking about something different was always like, regardless of how I felt about it, I just like the fact that somebody would just be writing about something different.
You like the outside the box approach, pretty much.
Yeah, just anything that was not going to be the run of the mill, anything that was going to get you thinking and just looking at something and just being puzzled and saying like, all right, I didn't realize that this existed.
Okay. All right. I got a tough one for you now. It's going to be a
Sure.
rough one. So apologies ahead of time. This one always kind of gets people, but do you have a favorite lyric? It can be one of your own. It can be someone else's, or one of each if you have one.
No. Next. No, I mean, no, not really. I mean, there's all these bands that have talked about all these different things, and to pare it down to just one line or one song or one lyric, like, I don't think that I could do it.
Okay, it's tough. That's always warn everybody ahead of time because it's hard to try to just go pick that one lyric that's like gonna stand out because it'll change, and like you said, songs, different things. Usually everyone kind of goes with something they've wrote that they'll pick. They're like, I'm proud of this line for whatever reason, but that is fair enough. It's a rough question.
Yeah, I mean, like, so right now, obviously, we're the big thing that we're promoting right now is the client's record, and we're doing this 20-year anniversary thing. And I will say the concept behind clients is, maybe it'll be sad to be like my greatest ideas are behind me, because I thought that that clients was probably the coolest concept that I'd come up with, where essentially I developed like this world around these characters that were loosely based on people that I had met, and building like a world around those people. So I'd meet somebody that like was like living in like a transitional living house, and they would tell me half a line about something, and I would kind of turn them into like a Godzilla, Mothra type beast of a character. So like we had the Ant-Man and the Black Santa and the Certain Special Ugly character and the hospice resident character, and I build these like worlds around these people, which like at the heart of it was a person in a very like limited interaction with somebody, and then the rest was just sparking and kind of doing like imagination. So if anything, it really boils down to like more of the broader concept behind clients. Like
Yeah.
they were literally the clients of the people that they were the clients that were coming into a store that I was working at. And they were the subject of, just all these little short stories that became songs, that became, paintings and exaggerated beings that like Paul Romano was the artist. He had also done he did artwork for Trivium and for Mastodon, and he spent a lot of time uh, taking this little concept of, hey, I'm going to build up these characters, and then literally taking a photo in some cases of people, morphing it, painting over it, and then suddenly you'd have this like wild beast of a character that's like unrecognizable. So you take anything off of that record, and there was just all sorts of like weird little tints of fantasy and components of that I was always pretty proud of.
That's really cool. I love how you did that. That's really neat. Like that's a really cool concept. Really good idea to write around. I really dig that. Okay. So if you could give tips to songwriters, to vocalists, lyricists, all that stuff, what kind of tips would you give as far as like lyrics, patterns, flows, cadence, all that good stuff?
So when you're a kid and you're young, I say go out there. There's nothing wrong with emulating what you like, and just getting out there and doing it and seeing what's possible. Like for me, hearing Frank Mullen and just like understand, there was something powerful to saying like, okay, I can. I don't think I'm ever going to be as good as Frank Mullen, but the fact that I could like come close to doing that was very empowering for me as a teenager to say, okay, wow, I can do this. Or, like you're going to make the cryptopsy noises, you're going to make you're going to be able to like, kind of do the bark and yells of like a Max Cavalera and emulate that. Once you have those things down, figure out who you want to be and what you want to be, and there's nothing wrong with like being influenced, but at some point you got to figure out like who you are and what you want to be, and it's not about like just being a carbon copy of everything out there. um, Make your mistakes, make your, but at the end of the day, don't be afraid to be yourself.
Nice. Love it. Okay. So this next question, we all know when we're in the studio, we don't always think, well, we don't know when we're in the studio. I mean, most of us do, but when we don't always think about performing it live. Kind of like you said, when you're doing line by line, you're punching parts, you're doing different things. It's all good and well in the studio, but then when it comes to playing it all together, you're just like, oh, I should have thought more about breathing in these parts. Do you have a favorite part to perform live? And on the flip side of that, do you have a part you don't hate but you dread because it's a little rougher, because maybe you had to punch parts or you didn't think about breath support during the recording?
No, I actually disagree with a lot of that. Like I know people get worked up in terms of like how you're going to pull this off live, and I mean, I've never been big on the recording stuff. I've always been about live, and the recording sounds the way the recording sounds, and live's going to sound the way that live sounds. And it's like I don't necessarily think that everything needs to be. I
Perfect,
don't think
if you will.
yeah, you don't need it to be like a mirror image. And I mean, like for some of the stuff, like I think it's fine to like leave space to think of like, well, what's going to get somebody interacting and singing along. Make sure that there's nothing like, you don't need songs to be so busy
Right.
that you want the song to breathe, and you want there to be space.
Yeah.
So it's not just about like you take a dude like the Archspire guy, who like I think that's more like where people are like, well, how's he going to do this? Can he do this? Like whatever, because he's like so fast and it's impressive. It's amazing. Like I can't do that stuff.
Yeah.
But that being said, like I have the benefit of like Gunface, like one of the best metal vocalists that I know, and if I got to do a trade-off part, and if he's physically able to play a riff and do the part, you have your support, or you could ask for crowd support. You could, or you just leave the space where the parts that you can't do. Clients was like a big trade-off, but it was like I could theoretically do the entire track myself, but it sounds better when one person's yelling and another person is overlapping it. And if for some reason we didn't have a second mic, like it's just part of being a live band.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. Nice. All right. Fun question time. Do you have a favorite call out or mosh call? And this question is inspired by Adam D from Killswitch, from Kyle Medina of Body Snatcher, because they love to do the off the wall call outs. They'll say just completely random things before breakdowns and stuff that just people are turning their head like, wait, what did he just say? And then there's the normal stuff, the more like kind of like you said, like the hardcore, the tough guy stuff, and then there's all kinds of variety of stuff. But what's kind of your go to, and do you have a favorite one that you've done over the years?
No, so I'm going to say that not to say that I invented the off the wall mosh calls and stuff like that, but I might have invented that.
Okay.
The reality was that, and if you go back to the early 2000s and whatever, like we would go on tour with bands and like they would kind of do the same thing in the same spots every night. And in my head, I was like, that's a sin. Like I wanted that, like, you're not necessarily going to get gold out of my mouth every single night, but you're also not going to see it coming.
Yeah.
Because whatever was coming out of my mouth was whatever was like on the fly and at that point. And sometimes it was good and sometimes it wasn't. Sometimes it was funny and sometimes it, went over like a fart in church. And
at least it was organic, though.
Yes, you just got what you got, and it wasn't really about like, oh, geez, that's my that's like my go-to. I will say that being an adult has taken some of the fun out of that, because there's like I have to watch my mouth a lot more, because I don't really want to. It's not that I care what people think, but at the same time, I'm not trying to get myself in trouble and get canceled over some.
It's a different world now too than it was back then.
Yeah, and a lot of it wasn't about like I never really wanted to. I don't ever want to like offend people.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
Hardcore has always been a safe space for people, and even though it was a little dangerous and a little like wild and crazy, it was always accepting of individuals. Yeah. And you're not trying to like shun any, like you appreciate diversity coming from the background and the location and everything that we have. So it was never about like just shock value, but I've said some stupid things over the years, and it's not necessarily that I'm trying to, it's not supposed to be like shocking anybody. It was just more like, going with whatever was on the top of my tongue or whatever I could spit out at that moment. And it wasn't, you wouldn't necessarily ever get you wouldn't get the same thing twice on some tours. So sometimes it would be good, sometimes it would be unexpected.
I love those, and not by no means am I saying like either way is right or wrong, or better than the other. It's to each their own. What your band does and how you are as a person, whatever. Do whatever you feel comfortable with. Whether it's the more kind of like you said the other way, like the scripted, if you will. Doing that like, hey, I'm gonna say this every night. Or the organic. To me, it's something fun about the show, especially when it's really heavy, aggressive music, and it's just something kind of off the cuff, off the wall, and you're just like, wait, what? What just happened? And it brings that performance fun aspect of you're at a show for entertainment. It brings that little like extra, we're having a good time here kind of vibe, if that makes sense.
I mean, and now there are certain things that have become scripted that I think are just gold. Like Sango Sugabog had the murder ball and stuff like that, which, I mean, hey, listen, that's great. That's great. And it became something that like kind of became like, larger than life, where I think people really like look forward to it. There's probably a point in time where they were like, yeah, all right, yeah, we'll do this once. And then all of a sudden it just clicks. And, I mean, I was excited to see Murder Ball live. It's just like, kill for the football to get a free T-shirt. But yeah, I mean, I'll as far as I go, you probably don't get the same thing twice.
That's awesome. I love it. One thing Kyle and Body Snatcher, they started doing, I guess this last tour, they started posting it on social media, because that's a whole nother beast now with social media and bands and everything. But they would go, because he's known to do the random mosh calls. He'll say off the wall stuff. but they have gone out to the crowd or to the line beforehand, and they'll have a mic and they'll ask for just a mosh call. They'll just pick a random person like, hey, give me a mosh call for tonight. And people are saying everything from what's a mosh call to wait, what? And
I saw some of those videos, and,
and then he says it in a breakdown. It's beautiful. I'm just like, that's great. That's pretty clever.
for sure, yeah. I mean, and you know, I miss my window in terms of I just have to be very careful with you know, this is not my this is not my primary line of work anymore, and you know, I don't work in a warehouse or a tattoo shop or anything that it could that you know. So I just have to be very careful that what I do in my free time doesn't burrow over into what I do professionally.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So this next one is this next one is a little bit of a sports inspired question. A lot of times athletes are superstitious, if you will. They'll have to wear a certain pair of socks, or they'll have to do a certain thing before the game or before match or whatever. Do you have any pre-show or pre-studio rituals? And it can be anything from, like I said, I've had people come on here and say they wear a certain pair of socks, or show clothes is a pretty common one because most time it's the same set of clothes you wear on tour that is just going to stink and you're just going to sweat in them more, or shoes. I've had people say they drink a certain Gatorade in the studio, or just everything from that to push-ups to the fist bump, or even don't talk about it being a good show until we leave the city. Like it's a wide variety of just anything.
I don't sing the day before we leave for tour.
Okay.
First tour I ever did, I stayed up real late and I was stressed out. I'd never even left New England, and I literally last second sang before we left, and I didn't sleep. And then I got to the first show, and before we even showed up, I couldn't speak. Like, my allergies were going nuts. My voice was gone. And in my head, I'd always equated it to being like, I shouldn't have done that last practice. I should have just waited until I was at the first show. So now it's like, day or two before we leave for tour, that's it. I'll bring it at the show. That's it. That's the closest thing to superstition. I could sing every day for an entire month. I'm not going to sing the day before.
Okay.
Before we go.
That works. All right. Do you have a favorite show you've ever played? Is there one that stands out?
No, I mean,
or shows, if you have a few that kind of stand out.
No, not really. The earlier days of the Red Chord, where there was a point in time when when we were, everything was very, very personal, on those days of playing the shows with Black Dahlia and Premonitions of War and Between the Buried and Me, and when we were actually going, and I was doing a lot of the booking through an AOL account and having to get phone cards and call somebody, there was something to that where you're legitimately handling every single little aspect of your day-to-day going into it. You're printing out MapQuest directions. You're trying to figure out whose parents' house you're going to crash with after the show. It was just more like that era, as much as it was a ton of chaos and calamity, and you just be asking people, hey, can we stay with you? And oh, well, I got a dorm. I don't think anyone uses the gym at night. And next thing you know, you're a bunch of 20-year-olds staying on the floor of some 24-hour fitness place or something. Just everything about that was very, it epitomized adolescence and adventure, and the fact that you could just be all right, yeah, sure, cool, yeah, just pull over, we'll just sleep on the side of the road. It's just stuff that I wouldn't be necessarily brave enough in the world that we live in right now to kind of repeat. Not that I'd want to repeat it. I just think of all you just think of a lot of the liability and the safety and you just have much more to lose when you're older, whereas when you're younger and it's just an adventure. It's just everything's an adventure and everything is yeah, cool, yeah, sure. I remember we booked a tour around Mardi Gras. We just wanted to go, we booked an entire tour to Mardi Gras back just because we wanted to go to New Orleans during Mardi Gras. I mean, and it was just like having a conversation. Hey guys, check it out. So we're gonna do this tour, whatever month it was, and we're gonna book these. And it didn't matter like how shows were gonna be or anything. Like you just had this concept of like something that you want to do, and you just go and you do it. And it didn't matter. You're gonna be broke either way. And it was just that, like, yeah, just check. There you go. Hey,
Make
yeah, we gotta have a day off there because we're gonna be there. We have to like it's just gonna just be wild.
making the memories though, all those memories. Uh,
Yeah. And I mean, I owe the band a lot because prior to prior to this band and doing stuff, I'd never left New England. I'd never been on a vacation, like an actual like I've never really like left New England, period. So but my folks didn't have a ton, so like it wasn't like we were like flying out. I'd never been on a plane, never been out of the country. Like the fact that we were able to, you know, 2003 left the country, went to 9 different countries in the course of a Red Chord tour with my friends. Like it's pretty wild. Like work didn't do that for me. Like family didn't do that for me. Like it's just a big old adventure.
Power of music, man. So I want to ask, as someone who you guys grinded back in the older days, kind of you said with the map quest and everything. How do you think it is doing a band now compared to then? Because now it is, we kind of briefly touched on like social media and stuff and the way everything is now, but it's definitely geared more towards that and like the viral clips, kind of like we talked about with Lorna Shore and stuff like that earlier. But how do you think it is now as far as like trying to get a band going and doing all that compared to back then? It was more, you guys, like you said, you did 9 countries. The bands are definitely grinding and touring now like that still, but I feel like that's what it was back then. It was just workhorse, staying on the road, 200 plus days a year, rinse, repeat, record, do stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there was a whole lot more mystery and adventure, and I mean, I'm not going to say it's like I mean, I think about some of the stuff that we did and the way that it went, and like how, I mean, how unpleasant it is in the respect that like it's not safe necessarily. Like you'd have no, it wasn't like organized. It wasn't like there was definitely something to that. We were we were teenagers or in our early 20s, and it was just a big old adventure. You were going to literally say on a message board with some AOL account on the other side, or like some like X Hatchet Face X, hey, can somebody set me up a show somewhere in the Midwest? And some dude to get back and say, yeah, I got a spot, and you guys can come crash at this place after. And you'd get a phone number for somebody's parents' house, and you wouldn't know who that was. And then what you find out is that X Hatchetface X was actually like a 15-year-old kid, and the place that you were going to play was going to be like his high school's whatever, and he didn't tell anybody that there was going to be like amplifiers there. He's going to have you like put on at like an open mic like coffee house night, and the place that you're going to crash after was like his ex-girlfriend's parents' house, who he said, hey, can I have somebody stay over? And and now it's going to be 8 smelly guys like in a van, and somebody's parent is going to like flip out. At this point, like through the power of social media, I think like when you turn around, and I mean, even at this point, like the Facebook group pages and stuff are kind of like dwindling. But like when you could say, oh yeah, cool, how many people are coming to this event? Like, oh well, is it 5 or is it 5,000? Or when you start looking at somebody's like some promoter, you have a pretty good idea of like, hang on a second, this promoter is 13 years old, or this promoter, like everyone's over there yelling about them, or like you could like go on their TikTok and see them like having a mental breakdown. Like you probably have some idea at this point, like what you're getting into, versus like back in the day, you had no idea. It's like people would be, oh yeah, this guy from this record label was gonna put this thing together, and like you don't like, you just see like a layout. You just see a layout and a logo, and like you don't realize that guy like well, you don't know anything about that person or how they're doing it, or if they're organized or if they're not organized, if it's like a bedroom label or if it's like, if like you're going to show up and it's going to be like, gold records on the wall. Like you really have no clue. And, and I think like similarly, like it's scene to scene and city to city, and like you're going to have places that have like a really good foundational place, and other places that are trying to build, and other places that like maybe built and now like it's a ghost town. Um, so maybe there's still like a little bit of an adventure to it, but I think that you probably can do a lot more of your homework where there was no homework that could prepare you for that.
Shady promoters, man, dealing with those, just never knew what you were gonna get unless you
It's
knew
not
them.
even
And
like shady. Like it's not even like I don't think that, especially the world that we came from. Um, I don't know that like shady implies like it's almost like they're gonna rip you off.
we had a few that were like that every now and then. Like they would, and definitely it was like a one and done, obviously. But like they would talk a big game, and you'd like, okay, this is legit. Then you would get there, and you're like, where you'd meet them, and then they're gone, and then you're just, yeah,
Yeah, but it becomes a matter of, is that because you brought 300 people to the show and there's so much money and this is his chance to, run for another country with like the killings from the show? Or is it because, holy shit, fight or flight, like I just got in way over my head. I promised all these bands all this money and now like I don't want to face them.
yeah, probably,
I think for the most part, even on that level, um, most people are well intentioned. Most bands are small, and like you could say, yeah, cool, like book my show, and it doesn't matter. Like certain bands, like you could flyer it, and you could do Facebook ads and all that stuff, and like you're gonna play at some remote spot in Maine or New Hampshire or Vermont or Indiana, and there's gonna be 12 people at your show. I mean, at that point, it's like you just hope that this person is gonna like feed you or put you up, or that somebody's gonna pass a hat and you're gonna make a little bit of whatever. Or the 12 people that are there are gonna pick up T-shirts, and I think that there used to be the understanding of like, okay, it was $5 to get into the show. This person booked the venue. There's 12 people here. There's $60 through the door. I understand why this person can't pay me.
yeah,
Versus like, well, contractually, I mean, now everything is a lot more litigious, and there's like, yeah, my Instagram has 50,000 people on it, and I can't believe that you'd like, I can't believe you'd make me be reduced to this. No, you're reduced to this because you've never been to Bangor, Maine before, and there's not that many people. Like somebody promised you the world thinking that they were gonna do it. Not to say that somebody doesn't do a bad job promoting a show, but for the most part, I think that most people from the world are like, at least like they had the intention there, and it takes you a while to kind of like understand that like nobody is getting rich in most of this like underground
yeah,
music stuff.
absolutely. Um, okay, so touring advice for musicians wanting to tour. Do you have any advice as far as that goes?
Yeah, I'm gonna say don't quit your day jobs. If you, um, it's fine if you want to go on tour and if you want that experience of touring and you want to go out and you want to do it. Like touring has been amazing for me. Like I never experienced much else, and then I went on the road and I was able to say that I'd left New England. I'd been to other states. I'd been to other countries. Um, that being said, I was always very good about, I would kill myself working at wherever I was working. So if you work at a pizza shop and you make yourself invaluable as an employee and you're going to be the most reliable person and you're not going to like screw people over, and uh, you're going to plan stuff out right, generally employers are going to work with you and say like, okay, yeah, this person like busted butt when they're here and they're going to do this for me. Versus the musician mentality had always been like, well, I'm going to wait until the last possible minute, and I'm not going to tell my boss that I didn't want to have a difficult conversation and tell him I was going to go on tour for 3 weeks. So I'm going to fuck everyone over, and I'm just not going to tell him. And like, oh yeah, hey, sorry, I'm on tour for the next 3 weeks. Good luck. Make yourself reliable and make yourself like as valuable as possible for whoever, be the most like stable and reliable employee, and go out there and don't just like drop everything with no plan, because then very quickly you're gonna lose your practice space. You're gonna not be able to afford your van. You're if it's meant to be that there's some like opportunity of a lifetime that you can kind of go for it, you'll know, you will feel at that point, you will like start like running the numbers and being like, okay, can we do this? Is this possible? And I find that a lot of people like just like take it way, way, way prematurely and just go, "Oh, that's it, I'm going for it." And it's like, it's just not the time yet. And it's like, be consistent, be reliable. I don't care how good of a musician you are. I don't care how good of a vocalist you are. Um, because you're going to probably, in all likelihood, spend more time off the road than you are on the road. And if you're going to be somebody that wants to be on the road all the time, get used to not just being a band member. Get used to being a merch guy, a roadie, a technician, a sound guy. Get a job where you could be rubbing elbows and being consistent. Go be a sound guy at a venue, because um, the reality is like there's so few bands that are actually going to break out and that are going to be like that top level, and even the guys that are at the top are typically, there's very few that are just sustaining themselves off of their their band life. And it's like, it's not to say that there's like, that you can't be, a security guy at a venue, or that you can't be like a tour manager for something else. Like, you can keep yourself very busy and very active, and like there's ways to be very reliable and to make it lucrative if you play your cards right and you do it correctly. I think that the common misconception is oftentimes that, okay, well, I'm a musician now and I'm just gonna be in my own band and then that's it. And it's like, but you don't want to like put the work in. Like, you're never gonna be too valuable to go sell T-shirts for somebody. If that's the spot that's open, the light spot, the front of house spot, the merch spot, the driver spot. If you want to be a road dog, you're going to have to figure out a way to do it. And sometimes you're going to be the bottom guy, and that's what you have to do to stay busy.
Fantastic advice. I love it. Okay. Do you have favorite bands that you've toured with? Is there a few that just like stand out right away that were just some of the best times, or not to like single anybody out per se or anything?
So yeah, I mean, like we were obviously very attached to the Black Dahlia guys when we were touring with them back in the day. Most of those guys, like, it's new guys and they've always just been solid dudes. Between the Buried and Me has been a band that we're very, very attached to. Just, it's amazing when you start saying like, all right, yeah, you have like 20 plus years of, friendship. Walls of Jericho, definitely a band that we spent quite a bit of time on the road with, and and it's at this point a lot of them have kind of like played musical bands and stuff where, like, now it's to the point where you kind of have like just a bigger extended network of of friends and friend bands. So those three in particular just really stand out. A Life Once Lost, we'd always we had a long history with, and like Nick to this day, like, we're still we still chat him up all the time, and Bob Meadows I recently was like reconnecting with, and just people that we were from our earliest times. And it's just one of the coolest things is just thinking that a lot of these guys that I did some of these tours with when like I was still like in college, and I'm still bumping into them at fests or at shows, or just like reconnected with on on like Facebook or social media. Recently, like we went on tour with a band years ago called Still Remains, who are doing something very similar. They're doing like 20-year stuff, very different sounding band, but they were just such awesome dudes. And I just did some like guest vocal thing on like their track. They're much more like singy, screamy, like Killswitch Engage type stuff. But as far as like that stuff goes, like I think that they're one of like the top bands that was doing that like Killswitch type sound. And like I just did some guest vocals on like one of their songs. Just really, really genuine, solid people. And it's amazing to say we did this run with them 20 years ago, and now all of a sudden, like, you're just reconnected online and you're just like happy to hear from them. Uh, Still remains. It was funny because they did. There's this mustache rap song that Red Chord has. I don't know if you've heard that. That was on the. It was like a multimedia feature, like on the Ozfest reissue of Clients years ago. But Still Remains wrote this like Red Chord mustache song. It's worth your time if you check it out.
Okay.
But Still Remains Red Chord, and it was really, really nice and exciting to connect with these dudes, like, as we're all like in our 40s.
Oh, all right. Awesome. All right. So I've taken up a lot of your time, so I just have two more things for you. The first is I want to just kind of give you the floor, plug whatever you would like to plug. It can be whatever.
Yeah, so right now we're promoting the Red Chord 20th anniversary of the Client's record. As part of that, we're doing some anniversary reissue of Clients on vinyl, and we're going to be playing a handful of shows over the rest of the year. So I know you said that this is going to be airing at the beginning of October. So the very first show is going to be September 27th in Daytona Beach, Florida.
Nice.
We're doing a show with Dying Fetus and Incantation, Fuming Mouth, All Out War, um, Restrictor Plate, like just a whole bunch of like really cool bands. So that'll be like the first designated Client set. And then over the rest of the year, we're doing a couple dates with the couple headlining dates with Number 12 Looks Like You, and See You Next Tuesday, and Vomit Forth in Boston and Brooklyn just before Christmas. And we're doing the Decibel Beer and Metal Festival out in Denver. We were trying to figure out a way to get to the West Coast, but I don't know. It's like just between the rest of my guys, like all having other bands, like our drummers in Flames now, and Uncle Acid and the Deadbeats, and we're just trying to figure out times that we can get anything done. But I'm excited that we at least have these handful of shows to promote the legacy of the Client's record.
Nice. And then those shows will be listed website, or where can everybody find the shows as they get announced?
Everything's on social media, our
Okay.
Facebook page, or the Red Chord Official on
Okay.
Instagram. I think everything's up, and we have so few shows that we just end up like plugging the same thing 50 times. So
Okay.
it's all out there.
I'll make sure everything will be linked down below, so definitely everybody can go check out those shows if they're near you. Then come out and support. The last thing I have for you is I like to just kind of give you the floor. Maybe there's a vocalist or a singer out there that is just starting. They're needing some inspiration, or maybe it's somebody that's been at it a little bit, could use some help getting over a hump, or even a veteran. Maybe they're in a rut or something. Just any kind of advice you can give to the vocalists out there. The floor is yours to kind of give them that wisdom.
I'm probably the wrong guy for this, but like I said, don't go quitting your day job if it's meant to be. I mean, the problem with us vocalists is like there's dudes out there that are better than us. We are not the best of the best, and there's going to be other guys that are better. Keep in mind that you got to do this for the love, and you got to do this for the fun of it. And as long as you're out there and you're doing it for the right reasons, being like you're having fun with it, then there's nothing wrong with that. It's like when you expect that this is going to become something that's going to be just like paying your bills, that it becomes like a little bit more. You're kind of like putting a lot of tax like on your passion at that point. If you can make it, and if you could all of a sudden become like one of these Whitechapels or Lorna Shores, like you will know when it's time, because it will be undeniable. And but otherwise, like just keep in mind why you're doing it, and as long as you're having fun with it, good. And if it's starting to stress you out, or if it's becoming too much of a responsibility, like go do something else, because there's plenty of fun things to do in the world.
Okay, awesome, great advice. Yeah, thank you so much. It has been an absolute honor chatting with you, and I really, really appreciate your time. Thank you for coming on and talking all things vocals.
Yeah, thanks for staying on me, man, because unfortunately, like we're either busy and doing stuff together, or like everything's just kind of like an afterthought. So I appreciate that we actually got to get this done.
Absolutely, it's been awesome, and I really appreciate it, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, buddy. Cool. Thank you.
Thank you all so much for watching and listening to this episode of Behind the Vocals featuring Guy from the Red Chord. Please be sure to check out all the links down below to go check out Red Chord on the different socials, as well as listen to him on Spotify, and keep your eyes out for the 20th anniversary shows for their record, The Client. Thank you all so much for watching or listening. I greatly appreciate it, and I'll catch you guys and gals on the next one.